Oh my.
Hi.
How are you doing?
We're doing okay. Oh my goodness. So what's going on with you?
Absolutely nothing new. We're trying to figure out our plans because it seems like our assignment's coming to a close. So details will hopefully be in the near future. I would love to know, like in advance, what's gonna happen.
I
But
know.
other than that, not much. What
Yeah.
about you?
Nothing much. The plants are thriving. I'm proud of them. I gave a lot of them haircuts the other day, so I may or may not regret that in the future. Because whenever you give a plant a haircut, it becomes another plant. So I've
Mm.
essentially doubled the amount of plants that I have now.
And that definitely needed to happen.
I did not plan any of this out. So I have a bunch of baby plants that I can either sell or give away, and I've already given 4 away.
Okay.
So who
You're very
knows?
generous with your plant giving. Yeah.
Aw, yeah. Plant people are very generous in general,
Mm.
I find. But, whew. So, did you see the news this week?
What was I looking for?
Well, the Olympics is not doing great.
Yeah. It's just like a ton. Which one do you want to specifically
I know.
talk
I was
about?
like,
This
where
is
do you want
not
to
going
start? Where do you want to start? Do you want to start with the swim caps, Sha'Carri Richardson?
on.
Richardson's her last name, right?
Mm-hmm.
The Namibian runners.
Let's start with the Namibian runners. What happened there?
So they said that there was too much testosterone in their blood levels for them to compete as women.
Yeah. I
Which
did see that.
women have testosterone. That's
Yes.
a thing.
Yes.
Uh,
Yeah. A big question I'm running into a lot is like if they pre-qualify, why is it a problem now? Like they qualified for the Olympics when they were supposed to originally be last year. So what is happening?
I don't know. I don't know whatever. I don't know who this overarching governing body of the Olympics is, but obviously these people are just like, yeah.
Yeah, they're not doing great.
No, exactly. And I'm also very curious, like, why, like, the governing body of the Olympics, is it like other sports where it's like former players get kind of a say? Do former players, professionals actually do have a say? Do they have a say in how their sport is shaped in the future? Like whenever they're old enough to retire and then have like Wheaties commercials.
I like recently you see a lot, well, actually in basketball, I feel that there are a lot of owners who once played the sport, but it feels more often that the people who have the most say in no way have played professionally. And I would say that's the same for the Olympics. I
Yeah,
hope I'm wrong. I hope that it's past Olympians making all of these policies and decisions, but I don't think so.
that doesn't seem fair at
Mm,
all.
yeah.
And also, like, I hate that that's the process because technically, like, any Olympian could technically just take one of these Olympic like officials to town and just honestly, they're an elite top athlete in the world. If I got punched in the face by one of them, I'd be out. Like, how is it that like it just seems exploitive and it's not fair, and these people train their entire lives for it to be decided like that,
Mm-hmm.
because you can't help your testosterone levels.
Yeah.
That's a genetic thing. It's what you're born with.
Mm-hmm.
Like you wouldn't like make them give up any other genetic aspect of their athleticism.
Right.
Hmm.
Yeah. It's interesting. And it was just for the Namibian runners, right? Like no one else had this problem.
I think that it would like the Namibian runners were the ones that I saw the most coming up with that issue. I know that they do test for hormone levels in female athletes, but also do they do that for male athletes?
Yeah, that's a good question. A lot of everything that I've seen recently is about specifically Black female athletes, but then also there's something about the problem because they're not allowing families in because of COVID, but they're like, oh, but nursing mothers, if it's necessary, can bring their children. And so Alex Morgan, a US women's national team member, is like, who determines if it's necessary? Like we're leaving for the Olympics next week and I still don't know if my daughter can come with me. So
this is ridiculous. Like this whole first of all, they prepare for the Olympics for 4 years in advance, maybe more.
Yeah.
B, they've had a year to sit on this.
Yes.
And now, like with the Olympics being when again? I'm not watching it, but when?
That's a great question. They're coming up.
With it being this summer, like what's even gonna happen?
Yeah. What's even? I'm about to look at it now.
They had a year to sit on this.
Mm-hmm.
They
could
had
have gotten this perfect.
They could have planned this out. This is. I know that COVID threw off everyone's lives, but I feel like if you can put something off for a year and then have this huge event, yeah, and especially
it starts July 23rd.
And especially with things that are as stupid as swim caps too.
Yeah, that is just. I mean, when I heard it, I was like, "Are you kidding me?" Because it doesn't fit natural hair. It's like so that decision went through how many people, and nobody said, "Hey, this might be mad racist."
Like how many, like, yeah, how many people before that was announced that they were like, yeah, this is a great policy. This is a good idea. Let's just keep going. Y'all, we're on a roll.
Oh yeah, they're not doing too hot this year.
No. No. And then on top of that, Sha'Carri, like, I don't know what your stance on marijuana is, but as far as my opinion goes, she was in a state where it was legal. She was using it as a means to cope with the death of her mom. Like, and then she still went and ran the biggest race of her life and still won. Like, they're just I feel like the officials are just like targeting and trying to punish her at this point.
Yes, that's what I think. It's just another way to police. It's not necessary.
No. It's just crazy.
That specifically is extremely sad.
Yeah, exactly. Jury's still out on whether or not she's going to run the relay, but the 100-meter will be during the time that she is suspended. And I also didn't know she was only 21.
No, I didn't know she was that young.
Yeah, me neither. I was like, oh my Lord. They are literally punishing someone who just became an adult.
For something that is legal where she is.
And it's not a performance enhancing drug. If anything, from what I know about weed, it definitely doesn't enhance anything.
Yeah.
From what I know about it.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Like you said, it's just another way to police. And I think it's definitely, I feel like the Olympics are another symptom of the whole global issue of anti-Black racism, because it did start again in like what, the 20s?
It sounds right.
The modern day Olympics started again like the 20s.
I can look it up.
Yeah. Thank goodness for cell phones. But anyways, whenever the modern day Olympics did start, it was still a very racist society.
This
I
is saying
can
1896.
1896.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, definitely racist. Like we talked about last week about like the athletes that were banned from like showing solidarity, showing racial solidarity, and doing political symbolism, and they've been banned from doing that too at this Olympics.
Yes, I did see that. I actually read that NPR article about Gwen Berry. And first of all, she got in trouble for doing that in the past. So the fact that she did it for protesting, so the fact that she did it again, it's like, queen. And then also, yeah, they said in Tokyo, they've absolutely, in no way can you protest your national anthem. So that's going to be very interesting. And Twitter, she tweeted, "Stop playing with me." With the picture of her protesting, because she said she was set up because they said that they would play it before she exited, like before the runners were at the ceremony, but because they played it, even though they said that they would do it earlier than they actually did, she was like, mm-mm.
Jeez. Like it just blows my mind, because there are certain aspects that I believe that like freedom of speech that allow us to be able to criticize and recognize like our country's racist history, and like the ability to be able to do that, it should be protected. And I don't know, since the Olympics is like an international thing, like I don't know, because I know that not all countries are allotted that same right and that same freedom. And so I don't know if they were doing that in like in a way to sort of like almost protect the athletes in other countries from seeing that and being emboldened and potentially endangering themselves if they're not allowed to do that, or if it was a way to suppress criticism of the US.
Interesting. Yeah, because I wonder if anything's happening with other countries where Olympians or athletes are protesting their national anthem, or is it just the US?
And it does seem very countercultural in some parts of the US, at least, to protest like the national anthem, the Pledge of Allegiance. Like I remember one time talking with a friend from the UK, and they were just like, they were amazed at how patriotic, how many flags like were in people's yards, how students would have to like recite the national anthem and like the Pledge of Allegiance every day at school. And I don't know what it was like for you growing up, but I also did it to the Texas flag too.
Wow.
So the US and Texas.
I did not pledge to the South Carolina flag, no.
Yeah. Like we definitely pledged our allegiance to both America and the Texas flag, which I find so cringy now.
Well, did they not do that in the UK?
In the UK, they were just like, yeah, only like weirdos like display their flags on their porches, or like you only see it like during like the Queen's birthday or whatever. And I was just like, that's interesting.
Yeah, I didn't realize it wasn't. I didn't realize it wasn't normal until Sophie, one of my friends from school, she was talking about, yeah, like other countries don't do that. And I was like, what?
Yeah.
I don't even know what that would look like. I mean, we've always said the pledge in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think we listen to the national anthem every morning, but we definitely pledge to the flag every morning.
I had the national anthem memorized by the time I was probably in kindergarten.
Yeah. It's one of the first lessons I remember. So
Yep.
we learned it at a young age.
Yep. Also, God Bless America. All those patriotic songs.
Yeah.
Oh.
And now
that's so cute and so cringeworthy.
And now we're like all black on the 4th. Like I didn't even do anything.
I went to brunch because it was also Sunday. I went to brunch and then we went and watched fireworks. But yeah, the 4th for who?
Right.
Like, what are we celebrating exactly? I saw a lot of people posting like how many days there were between July 4th, 1776 and Juneteenth.
Yeah.
And like posting that quote, like, none of us are free until all of us are free.
That's why I love how Juneteenth is. I mean, I didn't really do Juneteenth before last year, which I hate. But that's what I love, that it's becoming such a big thing, because like everyone wasn't free on the 4th. And I mean, the fact that it's still like such a big national holiday, and even though we know that everyone wasn't free, I feel points to the fact that there's still a lot of work to be done.
Like, oh my goodness, it is pouring rain outside my window right now. I think I heard about Juneteenth a little more because it was Texas. And I'm very grateful that I did know about Juneteenth. I didn't really know the significance other than slaves being told that they were actually free for years. It just didn't really click in my head, just like whenever I was in 8th grade and was told that the Civil War was literally just called the War of Northern Aggression.
Whoa, I never heard that one. Wow.
And it was over economics and states' rights. It wasn't over slavery.
Nuh-uh.
So there also, I think there's been a couple of bills proposed to like teach Texas history. Like, it's been proposed in response to the critical race theory being taught in schools. It's been proposed in opposition to critical race theory and wanting to teach true history in Texas. Thanks, Abbott.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's all I got there. Wow. No, we did learn that the Civil War was over slavery.
That's good. It was called the War of Northern Aggression whenever I was in school.
It's interesting it's not the same. I did see like lightning flash just now. It's interesting that it's not consistent.
Yeah, like US history isn't consistent across all the states. That is wild.
That is crazy.
Granted, Texas education system is in the bottom of the 25 states. It's in the bottom half.
Yeah, so is South Carolina.
Yeah.
Last time I checked.
I don't remember who had the best state education, but I don't even know how they measure that really.
Mm-mm.
Because there isn't a national standardized test. It's all state governed. Which I think is also ridiculous that there's not a national curriculum.
It's
Because
like, how is that not? Well, I guess states' rights would be the argument.
but there are just some things that should really be standardized, because whenever I think I don't think the founding fathers thought about over like however 6 million people or however million people over in California, they would have said a who and a what now?
Right.
Because California didn't exist. It was technically Mexico that we stole.
Yeah.
We didn't steal it. The white people stole it. So not us, we.
Not us.
We didn't have any control over that.
Mm-mm. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. So speaking of the West Coast. Oh my gosh.
All you could ever know.
I love our rabbit holes that we go down. This has been good.
Yeah, it's easy to go down them too.
It is, especially with everything that's going on. Like, you feel like you want to open up with something that's current and something that's happening, and then all of a sudden we get into talk about westward expansion and what's it called? Manifest Destiny, which was a hoax.
Yeah. And I was taught Manifest Destiny before we get out of this rabbit hole, like it was a good thing. I remember that specifically.
Exactly. They were like, Manifest Destiny, a country that spans from sea to shining sea. Yeah, cool. How many millions of people did we kill over that dream?
Yeah.
So bad.
Yeah.
Like, and we talk about like annexing like other like whenever like we annexed like Hawaii and like totally overthrew the indigenous population there too. Because like if you look on a map, Hawaii is nowhere near us.
No.
Really?
They were their own people doing their own things, and then
US imperialism, which we're also still doing to Puerto Rico and various other territories.
Actively, yeah.
Yeah.
Which is also praised as a good thing for whatever reason. How are we not learning?
I have no clue. So like it's not even Independence Day for everyone either. Still
2021
people. Wild. Oh my goodness.
So all you could ever know.
Did you see that coming?
No, but I'm assuming you're talking about her deciding to like proceed and write a letter to ask for her permission, like her birth parents' permission to like actively talk to them. No, I didn't see it coming, but as it was building, I was like, yes, like I was cheering for her. I'm so happy that is the path we are now on. And last time where I checked out, she was like preparing to give birth to her first child, but I'm really happy we're on this path.
Yeah. Like, what do you think? Because like not all adoptees have that ability or that privilege to be able to actively search for their birth parents. Not all adoptees get that, are fortunate enough to be in that situation. Like even like if you take international adoptees out of the picture, like there are certain like documents that are sealed off after an adoption is finalized that adoptees don't even have access to. Like in terms of like knowing their birth heritage and knowing, like, I feel like everyone should have that right to know exactly where they come from, you know?
Yes. I'm glad you bring that up because that's something I meant to ask about last week, but then we got on that like
Mhm.
lost heritage track. But
Yeah.
this week I feel like she continues to push on like the right to be adopting.
Mhm.
And I'm not sure if that's like an active conversation, but I'm really curious to know if there are any talks about what the rights of the adoptee are.
Yeah, there aren't a ton that I can think of off the top of my head right now. I'll send you some links to other accounts that are much more involved with the adoptee rights.
Mm,
Because of a lot of it, I'm not particularly involved with it just because it hasn't really applied to me,
mhm.
in terms of having access to my medical records, having access to my birth certificate. I don't have that
Mm.
because it's all not there.
Wow.
Um, but like some adoptees don't have access to that. And they're domestic adoptees, and the records are just sealed and put away,
Mm.
and they don't have access to it as adults, which having access to your own medical history, I think, is a very necessary right.
Yeah, because I mean, she hints at, or she talks about that because she was meeting with her doctor and they were asking about like past medical history. And so to even know about like hereditary things
Mm-hmm.
that flow through her biological family, she had to request, like, write a letter to some type of intermediary, a
Mm-hmm.
search angel, I think is what she called them.
Yeah.
And then they have to like reach out to the parents, and then the birth parents, then with their permission, can
Mm-hmm.
release that. And I mean, like, that's hereditary stuff. Yeah, absolutely. I feel it feels intuitive that
Mm.
someone has the right to know their hereditary info.
Yeah. And I mean, like, genetic testing and hereditary information it wasn't as prominent, I guess, until more recent history, just because genetic testing used to be like super, super expensive and inaccessible.
Mm,
But I also feel like now that it's just as simple as spitting into a tube and sending it off to a company, um,
right.
to get certain medical information or genetic history. Um, I think that personally, I think that it should be accessible and it should be free to adoptees,
Mm,
because whenever we have to actually search for other like medical histories and things like that, we have to pay extra fees, and it incurs a lot of extra medical fees, for us to just have basic information about our genetic health.
wow.
So in order for me to know whether or not like something like, I don't know, I'm just going to throw out Parkinson's or Huntington's disease runs in my family, and if I wanted to get genetically tested, if I was showing signs of it or something like that, I would have to pay extra money to be able to find that out just simply about myself, or something that you could very easily find out if you were still with your biological family.
Mm. Yeah, I agree. It should absolutely be free.
And it's not.
And I imagine it's pricey.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah. And looking at it, and also looking at it from a trying to look at it from an anti-racist lens, like knowing that medical, like the Black and brown community, and minority communities already don't really necessarily trust the medical process. So that being compounded on top of an adoptee searching for medical history and knowing how racist the medical industry is
Right.
can be equally as stressful, or doubly as stressful, doubly as, um, just enraging, honestly,
Mhm.
on how people are treated sometimes in this process.
Yeah.
Like, how the system does treat people of color. So for an adoptee, it's just doubly intimidating. I can imagine. Like I said, I don't have the same struggles because thankfully, I haven't had anything that's come up in my health that would suggest something genetically is out of place with me. And B, any other like testing that I've ever wanted to have to do was gratefully I was covered by insurance, but like something as simple as just like being able to go over and be like, hey mom, does allergies again is like cat allergies a thing in our family? Oh yeah, Hannah, sure it is. That would save a trip to the allergist.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's not like, I think for me, the big thing is this like big decision was made when you were a baby or when adoptees are babies. And so the fact that now, like, not having access to your medical history, like, that's not your fault. So then why are you paying so much money for something, like you said, that's like easy access?
Yeah. That would be a simple, easy access for non-adopted people to just be like, oh, yeah, so for example, both of my grandparents had lung cancer. So how genetic do I know? Like, how much of that can be attributed to genetics? Well, I can guess for my cousins, but if there's always also that anxiety that there might be like a random genetic anomaly within you, but you don't have that history to be able to explain it. I remember coming back home from one of my first psychology classes and freaking out that I was going to like be one of X amount of genetic anomalies that was going to get like what was that? It was the one that Stephen Hawking had.
I can say like
ALS.
Okay, yes.
That I was gonna randomly get ALS and it was just gonna pop up one day and I wasn't gonna know how to deal with it. But it's just that extra anxiety that we have, even if we do know like our own medical history as far as like conscious memory, but like not knowing our parents' medical history, not knowing what could have happened to us in utero, what could have happened to us like in those first few days, weeks, months after birth, if you were adopted as a baby, but like also if you were adopted as a young child, not knowing that too.
I mean, two things. It's like, first of all, making me think about all the things I've taken for granted. Because I'm just thinking now about all the times it was like I've been asked, oh, it does like high blood pressure, high cholesterol run in your family, things like that. And of course I didn't have to think about it because I didn't know any other perspective, but definitely have taken that for granted. And then also Nicole Chung talks about that because her doctor was asking, because they were trying to predict how her pregnancy was going to go. And that just like caused so much anxiety for her.
Yeah. Yeah. Also things like depression, anxiety, those have very strong genetic factors as well. And so like I don't know if I was predisposed due to genetics or environment whenever it comes to my own mental health. So, but I do know that like my body's response to stress often is depression and anxiety. I don't know if I was genetically predisposed to that or if that's just something that popped up along the way. But like knowing that if I choose to have children, I'll be able to tell them, hey, you might start feeling these symptoms if you're really stressed or if your body is under immense stress. You might start feeling anxious. You might feel like you get insomnia. You might like have all of these other things just to kind of give them a heads up almost.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. To be able, yeah, because you experienced it, and then
Mm-hmm.
that's an easy link of, oh, by the way, I experienced this, so you might, yeah.
Yeah. Because there are very strong genetic components to mental health. So, yeah.
That power between like that, when Nicole is like, she's not had her kid yet from what we read, but she's pregnant, and just talking about that like blood connection
Mm-hmm.
with someone that she knows. And I mean, just the details she used to describe it was, it just gave me chills. It was so beautiful. She was like, I would have like a blood connection that, which is something that she just hadn't had yet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, being able to have a genetic mirror to like being able to see that you actually look like your family members is also something huge that I've always been curious about with my own birth family. Like, I don't know who I look like. I just look like me.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Did you find any? I don't remember how far I read to. I read to about. How far did I read to? Yeah, I think I got about as far as you did too with the whole search angel thing.
Okay.
So, was there anything else that you found?
I found it, the birthing class, interesting, how it was like the natural birth class, because she said like the anxiety that came from
Mhm.
not knowing the family health history. And so she was like, I need facts. I've always felt refuge in facts. And so to take, which I mean, she kind of says she's the opposite type of person. So like natural birth is very like, let your body do your thing. And
Mhm.
she's, I mean, she makes it clear that she's always been like a, oh, what, like, doctor, what can you prescribe that will help with this?
Yeah.
The fact that she found so much comfort in that class was really interesting to me. But I'm like very into natural, like holistic health. So I enjoyed it for many reasons.
I think for me personally, I am just not in that stage where I can even think about a kid at this point, much less think about birthing one. Yeah, I still refer to children as things sometimes whenever I'm terrified of those things. Um, so I could see myself being completely avoidant of all things that have to do with childbirth, pain, children.
Specifically childbirth. No, you said children.
Just children
Specific,
in general, they scare me.
specifically childbirth terrifies me, just because I don't like being in
Mm.
pain, and that's like hours
Mm.
of pain, and it's natural pain.
Mm-hmm.
But I do love kids. I Right now my favorite thing is like spoiling my cousins, but then
Mm-hmm.
giving them back to their parents.
Exactly. Like whenever that's so interesting whenever you mentioned like childbirth, there's like a lot of times whenever like I will think about like, oh, I wonder if I was an easy baby to carry or if I was like a tempestuous uh child, if I caused any problems, if my mom had any pregnancy struggles or challenges. Like I do wonder about that because like a lot of my friends will be like, "Oh, my sibling broke my mom's hip on their way out." And I was just like,
What a thing to know.
I know, right? And I just feel like people have these birth stories and just these small little anecdotes that are just like, "Oh yeah, I dislocated my shoulder on the way out, so they had to pull me out with pliers." Like I don't really have that. Or like, "Oh, I was a C-section baby, so boom." I wasn't born, I was technically removed. Like,
yeah, I think 100% goes to like things we take for granted.
mm-hmm.
I don't know that people actively think everyone does not have like this connection with their birth parent. Everyone doesn't know their birth story.
Mm-hmm. So I've always found that fascinating.
Mm.
Like birth stories and like that, but I also once again trying to bring back birthing into an anti-racist lens, like in medical racism. It just made me think about I think it was, I want to say it's the highest maternal death rate is actually among Black women in the US.
Yeah.
So,
And I just wonder, why is that? Well, there's medical racism, yes,
mm-hmm.
but like, why specifically are Black women dying the most? Like, what is happening?
I know that from our education, that just compounding stresses of racism. It literally can shorten your life. Like the compounding stresses of living in fear of racist attacks, the compounding stresses of living of your X amount times more likely to have high blood pressure because of the stress. Um, just things that like just things like that. Just I think they compound and they can put more stressors on, and like childbirth is a very stressful process. So that combined with medical racism, if like doctors are not believing you whenever you say that you have pain or that something is wrong, and they don't listen to you and just keep doing whatever they're doing, that, and then on top of the fact that you might have like high blood pressure or something like that from just compounded racism and racist acts throughout your life, that unfortunately can really be scary for a Black or brown woman in the hospital system.
Yeah, those certainly add up. Yeah, that's a good point. I was always curious about like what you said with if you're claiming pain and the doctor doesn't believe it. I was wondering how much that played a role in it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like I'm actually reading and learning a lot about like pain and palliative care with my new role in my new job. And so it's very interesting because pain is it's very individualized, very subjective. So being able to have an accurate measure of pain and how to manage that and how to make those judgment calls. And if the doctor hasn't been culturally trained or isn't culturally sensitive, or is at worst just a flat out racist, can choose to, they're the ones that are in control of helping a patient manage that pain.
And I mean, just like thinking about how subjective pain could be. Because I mean, of course, like whoever is responding to that pain has to have a solid understanding. I'm thinking about like the pain scale where they're asking like on a scale of 1 to 10, what kind of pain are you feeling?
Yeah.
Just like how different that can be for each person, even if it's the same amount of pain.
Exactly. Like I was reading an article where it literally had the little smiley faces and 10 was like crying and like 0 was like ah.
Mm-hmm.
So like I've been in the ER before where they have asked me on that scale and I would just be like, I don't know how to describe this. I guess a 4 or 6, but the difference between 4 and 6 was how much pain meds they were going to give me.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm always like, is it more than half of pain? Like, I don't know.
Yeah. So like whenever it comes to medical racism and things being so subjective to that, like it's just I'm astounded that like not more people are low key like in pain or even dying from like medical racism.
I mean, all racism is dangerous. Medical is extremely scary because, I mean, especially like with the distress of the medical system, it's often like at its worst. Like, this is not preventative. It's often like as it's happening, like in a very dangerous situation. So if you like happen to run into a racist doctor or someone who's not taking you seriously, that's your life. And that's extremely scary.
Yes. And like, and just also just the history and the legacy of medical racism, the unethical and illegal testing on people of color, like, and like also just the forced sterilization of women of color too. Like that is enough to deter anyone, I would say, from going to the hospital when they really are in pain. So I feel like if you know the history of medical racism and all of those scary things that happen to people that are like you, so you put off going to the hospital until you really, really, really need it, and then by then it might be too late.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, you run into a racist doctor.
And then maybe you can't afford your bill.
Yeah.
Which
so
is
on top of that, like that, whenever we broke it down like that, it doesn't really surprise me that between medical racism, the pressures of just everyday racism, and the history of just like and fear that's inflicted whenever it comes to doctors in the hospital and the medical process, like it doesn't surprise me that the Black maternal death rate is so high.
There's so many barriers. The system was meant to work this way, where specific populations are disadvantaged, and now we're seeing that play out.
It's not an equitable system, and like there are still doctors being trained that still come out of med school as racist doctors in an already racist system.
Yeah. It feels like there has to be some form of like cultural relevancy. It's not competency, but like cultural sensitivity training, just understanding, because I've never been to medical school, so I don't know what's going on. I imagine they're not talking about like the ugly history between the colors of community and the medical practices. I looked into it, and it is nasty, like all around heartbreakingly nasty. And I imagine they're not looking through that as like a required part of the curriculum.
They're probably like really busy learning like how to fix your spleen and things like that, because I can't imagine going through medical school. But then also just, I mean, if they were just to sit through one training or even one lecture, 2-hour lecture on like, hey, you need to understand why some patients might be scared of you, other than the, oh, some patients just don't like doctors because they have needles, but like the genuine fear that communities have whenever it comes to the medical field, I feel like it would change a lot of things. And it also just makes me admire like Black and brown doctors even more.
Yeah, it's navigating those systems, like, and excelling and being able to be a good doctor for your people. Yeah.
And then on top of that, they have to face the racism in the process of becoming a doctor too.
Yeah.
So it's just wild. I saw a TikTok the other day where yes, I am on TikTok. I saw a TikTok the other day where this med student was like, when the racist patient says that she doesn't want a Black healthcare provider, but the whole team is Black, and I was just, and then they were all just like, going like, yeah, yeah, too bad for her. And I was just like, yeah.
That is perfect.
Yeah, and it was like the doctor, the attending, the resident, the nurse practitioner, like they were all Black, and so they were all sitting there going like, too bad for you.
You want help or no? I mean, just like even having to go through that is crazy. Like a doctor is a doctor.
Exactly.
So if you have been through medical school, please help us out. Is there any type of cultural sensitivity training that is required? And if not, it would just remind me of Kendi saying how like we're not treating things as urgent as they should be. It's like, oh, there's no cultural sensitivity training because it's like not really needed, when indeed it's like just as important as learning how to actually like physically do your job and like recognize different parts of the body. Like it's not optional. It is necessary.
It is literally life and death for some patients. Yeah. Whew, goodness. Wild stuff. Oh my goodness. Well, thank you again for talking about this heavy stuff.
How are you feeling, Hannah?
I am feeling all right. I also feel like I want ice cream. So bad. I want ice cream.
Ice cream would be clutch right now.
Yeah, but maybe another time. But thank you again. I will send you the TikTok that I saw because it was too good.
Yes, please do.
All right. I will talk to you next time.
Yes. Bye.